Hello, hello, and welcome inside the Midlife Pilot podcast. It is the one and only podcast about all things aviation in midlife, and it is episode 40. This podcast is officially over the hill. We've reached episode 40, the very special crossover episode, and my name is Chris Moran, somewhat known on the internet anymore as the Midlife Pilot, and I am joined, as always, tonight he is above me. As you're looking at him, he's riding high from a high atop Music Row in the heart of Nashville, Tennessee. It's Mr. Brian Siskind, and good evening to you, fine sir.
Good evening, Chris. Man, it's good to see you. It's been a minute. Obviously, we haven't done one of these in a little while. Life has been a little crazy. And for whatever reason, we just don't make this exactly the number one priority in our lives. It's the number two priority. Two
or three. Well, I mean, you burned up the 7,000 air miles here in the last couple weeks.
I've done about 2,300 miles in the last week. 20 something hours. Just trying to get the rust up. No, I went to Marfa, Texas and back, and it was amazing, but,
that's awesome.
But yeah. And then otherwise, been working on the background on some things, like a lot of people are going to be asking, Chris, why is this called a very special crossover episode? Now, before we get into exactly why that is, I want to know how you're doing and what have you been up to?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for asking.
And that's the end of the show.
And good night, everyone. Cue the music. No, don't cue the music. It's been a fairly hectic end to the summer, beginning to fall. We've got my daughter, who's been on the channel a lot, Cecilia. She started our freshman year of college at WVU in Morgantown. So we've had a lot of move into the dorm college type activities coming through the end of the month here. We've been busy with that through August. A lot of work. Yeah. Not a lot of flying, but a lot of flying club things and airplane things, and clubs growing. We're getting close to, I think, for 45 members now. We've added 4 or 5 new members in the last month or so, and getting ready to put this plane down for annual in about a week. And so we get some stuff ready for that. And yeah, been pretty crazy the last month or so.
Yeah. And you've been doing all these music concerts and productions and all these other things. So, and working.
Yeah. Working.
Also that, right?
Lots of work. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So, we definitely haven't been around for a minute, but a lot's been going on in the background. We definitely want to remind people that, we do this live here. Obviously we're doing it a little bit different now on a Tuesday night, and perhaps that is something to get used to. We'll talk more about that. And to the people that are, this is just our way of recording the audio podcast. Ultimately, it's not really meant to be a video presentation, but we do like to do it this way. And it's better than just recording it privately on Zoom and releasing it later. And the reason why is because we get to interact with all the people in the chat, and that's what makes it great. And the community is what makes it great. So thanks for those who have joined us live. And we appreciate it. Make sure you do all the pressing of the buttons and the liking and the, put us under your pillow and make a wish or whatever it is that you need to do. But yeah, so without too much delay on why this is a very special crossover episode, maybe we can talk about what that means. Chris, what does that mean?
Well, episode 40, this episode is actually going to be my last episode as a co-host of this podcast. I announced earlier this week on my Patreon, to many of you who are in the chat tonight know this already, but I'm kind of stepping back a little bit from some of the activities related to the aviation content creation side of what I'm doing. I'm going to shut my Patreon is going to shut down. I'm going to take a step back from this podcast. I'm still going to keep the YouTube channel alive, still going to film my flights and publish content there when I can. So that's going to stay the same. But, it's just a reprioritization time of some things. And so I'm cutting some things loose that free up a little bit of cycles for me on some other areas, and just kind of give myself, I always say I need a little more margin, like in life in general. And so I'm just cutting some loose ends out. But I, for one, am extremely excited about the future of this podcast, because I know you have been working hard behind the scenes. Now, the podcast is going to continue, the Midlife Pilot podcast, and the name is staying. And here's why. I thought a lot about this. Like, I started off my YouTube channel just calling it the Midlife Pilot because I thought that was kind of fun, because I was like, it's my midlife thing that I did, right? But what has really become evident to me is that the Midlife Pilot is like all of us. And it is the community that's been developed around it. And like, it's not me, it's us. And I think that it's great that it's going to carry on. When we'll get into some of that here real soon too, of what the plans are kind of going forward, and introduce some new people, and all of that. So I'm super excited about the future. And I'll still, when you'll have me, of course, I mean, you guys are going to outrun me here, and I'll be a washed up has-been, but we'll still welcome an invitation to visit from time to time, to jump on the podcast. And I'll still be around the Discord. I'm still going to be around. I'm not going anywhere. But that's kind of what the crossover is.
Man, well, so what you're saying is you're kind of adopting Cecilia's strategy, where it's like, I can't be here anymore, but I will come here on the weekends to do my laundry and get free food.
Exactly. You got it. I got all the benefits and none of the hassle. It's a great approach to life, I've found.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's, look, there's a lot to say about it all. And, some of it, a lot we've already sort of talked about, but, publicly, I think it's worth saying that, absolutely none of this would have happened had you not had the impetus to start recording and documenting your flights and under the name of Midlife Pilot, because it really did sum up what was unique, right? There's a lot of people doing a lot of things in aviation, but it's kind of a specific thing when you learn how to do that later in life. And so you sort of, whether you intended to or not, became a sort of a sort of pillar in that realm. And, none of this would have happened if I hadn't have done what I was doing, and then saw I got so much help from what you had created, and then reached out to you. And then eventually we connected, and then we became friends. And then I thought, well, we should do a podcast, and you said, well, that's great. You didn't realize, a couple years later, that that's the dumbest thing you could have ever done. Oh, no. But I think it's kind of worked out for you. Right. And then, and then we've built the Discord. We've got a lot of things. So I think it's just important to note that I just think it's interesting how one simple creative work put out into the ether, you don't know what can happen or result from that, and what things will echo down the line. And you've been a huge help and inspiration to me to get started flying and to continue flying, and for a lot of other people. And that is why we stole your namesake, and we're going to use it in your absence, out of spite for you leaving.
Run into the wind. It's been a super experience, super fun. I just love the community. I just love the people we've met and the fly-ins that we've had. I mean, there's just so much positive that has come from it. And I'm just so excited to see where it goes from here, and to still be around as just a participant, for the first time, really just kind of being part of this group. And I'm just super excited. And it's good in life, I think, to take this kind of, like Josh is saying in the chat right now, that reprioritization is important. I mean, it's you just kind of have to know you got to do what's right for yourself at all the stages of life. And sometimes it's just time to take a step back from some things to make way for other things. And this is all very positive. There's nothing here this is not a negative. This is a positive thing.
No, I mean, you're going to be like sitting on the sort of proverbial podcast couch like Ed McMahon, for us coming in. But, well, the other thing too, I think that if there is sort of a topic, that we can kind of put this around, we've talked a lot about, sort of pilot burnout, the pursuit of aviation. I think that it takes so much energy and focus to get a pilot certificate. And some people really have to fight hard, based on circumstances or whatever, but all of us have to work really, really hard to do it. And it's kind of hard to turn that off. And then if you have, like you have, surrounded that also with ritualized content production and having a Patreon and then feeling the obligation of those things, it's only going to sort of stretch and exacerbate. If you're feeling like you're burning at both ends or running thin, all of those compounding sort of things start to make it maybe not quite as fun. And so I think I like the idea of looking at, because obviously aviation's, your flying club is you've talked before about how that's sort of that's a legacy item for you. That's a really important thing. And that's something that's in person and right near where you live, and you're vested and you need to take care of that along with the others that are doing it. So, but I guess just the idea that it's easy in the same way it's easy to compare yourself to others about, oh, well, now they've got their instrument rating, or now they've got their commercial rating, or now they're doing this, or now they've got a twin engine plane, or I don't know, whatever.
Now they're flying to Marfa, Texas and back.
Right. Yeah. And but it's like, it's real easy. I made a video recently about sort of comparison, and some of it was sort of inspired by some of this conversation that we've had. And, I think it's real easy in the aviation world to sort of there's a lot of different ways that you can get blindly in the pursuit of it without taking pause to think, how can I do this in a harmonious way with my life? And it takes all of your attention to do it right when you're getting your certificate and getting trained. It takes maybe some time to kind of back that off and find the sweet spot, right?
So I think that is a little bit, I think so, you kind of hit the nail on the head. Like when you're in the thick of it, and like when I was going for my private and I'm flying multiple times a week and like content, and just doing it, it was 100% of that. And then I ran immediately into the situation of trying to find a plane, and that born the flying club, and so then that took a ton of the energy away. And at the same time, I had a Patreon that was growing, and I had and so some of the expectations, I was actually talking to a friend of mine today at work about this, like a lot of the pressures that we feel are internal. Like they're not really there necessarily, but I did feel an obligation and still do. Like the nice thing about my Patreon setup was it's based on content. So like if I'm not publishing anything, there's no financial things that are happening for the patrons, right? So I didn't worry about it from that aspect, but I felt like every time I would look at my Patreon page and say, man, I haven't even posted a note for like 6 weeks, like I just felt like it's always kind of in the back of your mind, and it's like, it's just one more thing that is, whether it's self-induced or not, it was just kind of one more layer of like expectation that is being unmet, and that weighs on you over time. And so I just thought this is a great time to like just free that part of my brain space up to just do the other things that are taking all of my energy right now, and then keep making content when I can on my YouTube channel. And then when time allows, again, maybe something else, maybe phase 2 of the thing comes back to life, and we're doing adventures then, and we're doing trips, and we're whatever it is, when flying becomes more practical the club, I've said this on this podcast before, the running of the club and the stuff I do with the airport and that kind of stuff has really eaten what my allowable aviation time is in place of flying, really. Mm-hmm. I've flown 2 months or 2 hours in the last 3 months, maybe. So like it's minimal. I still love it. I'm not like, it's not like I don't want to do that more, but it's just, I've had to take time to prioritize keeping the rest of the stuff running in place of that. And it's fine. I get great satisfaction out of that stuff too. It's so much fun to see other people coming in and people taking their check ride in the club and like planes getting upgrades, and just there's so much joy just being around aviation that comes from that. And I'm content with that kind of balance. It's taking one thing for another, and not setting up this false kind of expectation that I can't meet regularly and feel like I'm letting people down. So this is kind of like, let you and the folks that you've tapped run with this thing and do better than I can. I don't want to be the detriment that's holding it back from being what it could be with people that can invest the time to really do it. You know what I mean? It's just going to be nice to get out of the way, whether that's real or not, Brian. You know what I'm saying? That's my own internal kind of analysis of it. So that's where I am. It's all great. And, like I said, I'm very excited, and I'm excited for the rest of this podcast when we get to talk to some other friends who are here too.
Yeah. Well, listen, I love all that. I agree with all that. I can appreciate all that. And to be honest, some of the comments that I'm seeing coming through here right now, I mean, I'm not going to lie, it kind of makes me want to drop everything too. Maybe I should.
No, don't do that.
Look how benevolent all this is. Alyssa says, kind. Built a plane ownership club, co-built a successful and inspiring podcast, helped foster the growth of a community of aviators. Chris, you've done a ton in a short time. You didn't even know how to fly a plane, 3 years ago?
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate that. Yep. It's been fun. It's been a great ride. And so I can't wait to do our next flying event where I'm like, I'm just going to pull up. I might bring the 150 over to Ohio. Who knows? I might just pop in. Who knows what we'll do, right? I might be crazy and just enjoy flying around with you guys for change with no pressure.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's great. I mean, and I think that these things do come and go in cycles. And I think that once you've maybe freed that up and then had some space from it, I can see very well you doing almost ironically more content than what you have been doing, because you don't feel like you have to do it. Mm. And then also, I think that the flying and stuff will, at some point, I'm pretty confident that you're going to get an instrument rating at some point, because you're a nerd like that and you like this stuff. And so I think that you'll come back to some of these things. Oh yeah. Alyssa says Chris shows up in a tail dragger just to make Brian jealous. Yeah. If you roll up in a 140, I'll have like one of those smiles that's really fake. And I'm really happy for you. No.
Right.
But yeah, man. So all good. So what is the future? I'll take this part, I guess. But basically, when you, called me to tell me all of this. And then after you were able to calm me down, and then after I stopped doing the heaving from, you know what I mean? Like from the crying and everything and all that, I thought, well, sure, we should just keep this thing going. But I wonder, there's only a certain way that if it's going to go forward, it's got to be a certain way. And if it's not going to be that, then we'll just put the whole thing down. And honestly, the world will carry on. It's not like what we're doing is hugely important to the universe. But the very first scenario that popped in my mind, and I think I even ran it by you at that point, but I just thought, this is what I think it should be. Mm-hmm. With these people. And if it cannot be exactly this, then I can't imagine any other scenario. And both of these people are not strangers to the podcast or to the Midlife Pilot community. Both have been in, video pieces that both of us have made and all of that. And, I guess now it's time, to pass. I still need to be like the number 2 guy. I can't be like the host guy. It's just I'm not good at stuff like that.
Second mic. That's what you like to be, the second mic position, like on second mic to like.
Yeah. I'm like a counter striker in boxing or something. You know what I mean? But yeah, so maybe what we'll do is just go ahead and introduce the new host or co-host and host / producer of the Midlife Pilot Podcast 2.0 that's going to be starting off with episode 41. We'll get into the details of how we're going to do it, how things are going to be the same, how things are going to be different, but maybe we'll just get the introduction done. So come on in, guys. Introduce yourselves. Oh, look at that. It's Ben and Ted.
Ben and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
All right. So Ben's voice sounds like a robot.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
We got the robot voice again. So this is how it should start, right? This is perfect.
Welcome to the podcast.
Yes.
And Ben is gone. Okay, so that worked out great.
Yes.
And then the last man standing.
And that's the end of Ben. You know, he's no longer in the podcast. Oh,
Yeah. So no, it's still the same, Ben. You got to reboot, come back. See, so look how Chris.
This works so
Chris, let me
well
just
in the
tell
green
you.
room. What happened? It worked so well in the green room.
Chris, let me tell
Exactly.
you, you and I both being audio engineers, those days are gone. Yeah, like Alyssa said, Ben's got the vocoder going. It sounds like it's like a Max Headroom kind of effect. But I love that I can use all these references though, because it's actually a midlife
That's right.
group, so that's good. But anyway, so Ted, we'll talk to you for a minute. Welcome as a co-host of the Midlife Pilot podcast. How are you doing?
thanks. Doing well. Yeah.
So Ted,
As what we've been saying is that Chris is kind of the OG midlife. It's what brought us all together, and it's like there's a lot more of us here, and we joined together.
Yeah, that's right. And so you've been helping us on the back end. I mean, oh look, there's Ben again. Ben.
Oh no!
No, it does not. So Chris, we're gonna do a very special crossover episode part 2.
Do I have to come back next week? And do we have to do this again, like so we can hand it off properly?
Oh my God! And it's amazing how much we had all this together. Way. We've done all the testing. We've done all the things. I'm also thinking about how much fun your editing is going to be of the audio podcast. I'm not editing anything. This is just what it is. Man, oh, it's so good. And I love that, like, how midlife is it too, that whenever there's a technical difficulty, there's a certain amount of aptitude to solve it, but then there's a ceiling to that as well, right? It's just, that's what it is. So, no, but Ted, you've been really instrumental in helping outfit and drive the community and helping us sort of manage all that, and also very active. Maybe what you can do while we're waiting on Ben is to tell everybody a little bit about yourself, as far as, you have a very special plane. You've had your own special path to becoming a pilot. And I think that one of the coolest things about having you representing on the show now is, we haven't really had a way to speak to the sport pilot community. And I think that that's a really cool thing and a really wide open pasture, that I think a lot of people would like to hear about or know more about, or there's probably a lot of midlifers that are in that sort of category. So ultimately, maybe you can just introduce us while we're putzing with Ben, and introduce yourself and tell us about what you fly and what you've been doing and how you got here.
Yeah. So, there are dozens of us sport pilots across the nation, literally dozens. And, the real advantage of sport pilot is it's a lot looser medical requirements. And so it really helps a lot of people with various issues like that. It's a lower bar to get into. I started at the very, very end of 2021, and really it was all of 2022 that I did quite a bit of flying.
Yeah.
Kind of went all in from, I think I'll pick this up and this might be an interesting little thing to try. And, pretty soon it's like, well, I'm going to be flying a lot more. And then, I should buy part of a plane. And then, I'm just going to buy my own. So, things escalated quickly in that way. I'm Yeah, I'm a sport pilot. I've got a flight design CTLS, what we call the little plastic egg, because it's this cute carbon fiber plane. And I've just been burning the hours on it.
You've been everywhere, man. You've been everywhere.
Seriously. Yeah. So it's been a delight. It's been great to have my own and, to be able to do a lot of things with it.
It has a parachute too.
It has a parachute. Yeah. And so I've been through the Cirrus training because they've got the most mature program on how to handle, parachute deploys. So, but you know what? I was never a big YouTuber or anything else. And at the point that I was having trouble figuring out how to land, was that from hour 10 to now, I guess, and, it's like, okay, I'm going to start watching a lot of videos for the sight picture. And, that's what really kind of got me into the YouTube world and into the midlife world. And, then pretty soon publishing videos and, increasing the quality of the videos. And, so like it's not enough to fly, also it's like, okay, well, sure. We just fly all the time with 3 GoPros and an audio recorder. That's a totally normal thing to do,
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, Ben is here now.
Hello, my name is Dan Grider.
Yeah. So now you've got your computer mic going, but not your actual mic. So you sound like you're in the next room, but Ben, you're getting closer.
Yeah, I was like, that's a step up from where we were. So.
Yes.
How about now?
Hey.
Yeah, you sound great.
All right. Hey, Ben, welcome. Welcome back from the Witness Relocation Program.
Oh, there you go.
Sorry about that.
No, you're fine, buddy. You're fine.
I don't know what happened.
Windows.
Your volume's a little quiet, maybe.
Well, let's not get crazy.
Yeah, let's not touch any buttons.
Yeah.
Let's not be silly.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I think that this is the most perfect, ceremonious unveiling of a podcast host possibly ever. So, Ben, you've been hugely instrumental and helpful and a key figure for all of us from this podcast, the community, everything. So many of us would not be anywhere near where we are without your input and your help. And so finally, aside from having somebody that can represent, say, the sport pilot community and that being what Ted can kind of do. And then Ted also has a very unique outlook on everything and that West Coast point of view and all of that. Now we actually have somebody who knows what they're doing. And so welcome, Ben. You're the only pilot here that knows what they're doing.
That's a very scary thought. I'd first like to toast Chris Moran.
Yeah. Cheers, Chris. Wait.
The community you've created is like nothing I've seen. And I just heartfelt thanks for everything that you've done.
Thank you, Ben. I appreciate absolutely.
That. And yeah, this is not the end either. So, you've graduated. Now you get to sit on the couch and let us do all the work, which I'm happy to do. And I'm very thankful to Brian for asking me to be here as well. And I'm sorry I missed Ted's whole spiel, but what was the question?
Hey, by the way,
was there a question?
By the way, on the screen, and the audio people will hear this, and we'll also put it in the description. But we have a new YouTube channel that all of this is going to, because we're not going to Chris's channel anymore, because he wants to charge us or something to use the.
Come on now.
Space or something. It's like a video podcast.
Yeah.
It's like a video podcast hanger. No, but we just created a Midlife Pilot podcast channel that it does, I guess, in appearance sort of look like a cheap knockoff of Chris's channel.
It does. I'm going to file a copyright complaint.
That was his grand plan. He wants to sue us, and now he doesn't have to work anymore.
Yeah. So we have a new channel. It's youtube.com/Midlife Pilot Podcast. If you just try really hard, you'll find it, or look in the show notes, you'll see the link for it. Please, everybody, we need everybody's help to sort of, we're doomed without Chris anyway. And so maybe just if out of sympathy, go and subscribe to the new channel that this is streaming on, and give us a little bit of help here. And it's going to take a while for that to kind of transfer over. And so we need people spreading the word, sharing the links, all that. And then obviously once it's out on audio, which will be, the following day, then we can have you guys also help us with the Apple Podcast and the Spotify and all that. But I guess as much as we rely on the community, we really need people's help right now to save us from ourselves, to help in the absence of Chris and our own haplessness. And then also just because we got kind of new channels and things going on.
Now this feels like a telecast. It feels like
we're
ready to start asking for money, like a telethon.
Well, so here's the thing.
Really
Call now. Yeah.
Here's the thing.
Next will be a Sarah McLachlan song playing and pictures of puppies.
Yes. But I just wanted to kind of get that out there because I don't want to talk about it anymore, but people need to know where to find it. And the last thing I want to say is unless there are any objections here, Chris, your vote does not count anymore because you don't have to do anything. But we are going to do our best, and we're going to try to start doing this every week on Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, and some other kind of PM TED time out on the West Coast. I can't even count. It's harder than Zulu. I don't know. It's out there. It's like Zulu minus 20 or something. I don't know what it is. But the point is that we're going to be doing this instead of every other week, if we're lucky. We're going to actually hit it pretty hard here for a while, folks, and we're going to go weekly. And then the last thing that is part of the telethon that I just want to kind of get out so that we don't have to keep talking about stuff is that we have an email address that you can now send us things. It's midlifepilotpodcast@gmail.com. And we want your feedback, your notes, your thoughts, your ideas, anything that you have there. We'll get more into like the segments and the types of things that we're going to do, but we're going to be using that email address to get some stuff from you guys, and it's going to be hilarious and good. So, yeah. I'm
sorry. I'm going to take you off topic. This is what I get to do now as a guest.
Yeah. Hold on. I can just press a button. I can just turn it off.
No, just kidding. I want to have a Zulu math moment. So you are really Zulu minus 7 currently, right? But I just want to say, Alyssa says Zulu minus 20 says Zulu plus 4, which would be the same time except exactly a day apart. So you'd be a day. So a day. Anyway, sorry, I got sidetracked by time zone math pretty easily.
Well, this is why people come to this podcast, is to ponder the larger questions. I mean, what is time, right? So, but that's good. So, Ben, we talked to Ted a little bit, got a sense of what he's about, how he got here, what he flies, all of that. So maybe Ben, this is really kind of you taking the reins now. Talk to everybody. Tell us who you are. You are now the president of the Midlife Pilot podcast, and we give you the sword.
God help us all. So, born and raised in the Atlanta area, actually grew up in a small town in Middle Georgia. And in 2017, my oldest sister's husband said, "Hey, I'm getting this airplane. I'm looking for a partner. I know you've always wanted to get your license." The airplane was a Cessna 182, 1968 model. Had a few little upgrades made to it. And I did my private pilot. I took my first lesson in December of 17. I'm sorry, it was 16. And then I didn't take another lesson until January because of weather, but ended up finishing up my private in January of 18. Started my instrument that summer of 2018 and took my instrument check ride in February of 2019. I'm in sales. I'm a wholesaler of employee benefits. And so I have a geographic territory, which is basically everything south of the Atlanta area, which is a pretty large geographic. So I was able to build up a lot of cross country time in a very short period of time because I used the plane to get me to places a lot easier. And it's been great partnership. My brother-in-law was a captain for Delta, and he just retired. So now he's starting to fly a lot more, which is actually a good thing. We're doing the engine replacement on a pro rata basis, and right now I've got about 3 hours to his 1 hour in his own airplane, so I need him to kind of catch back up. So my pocketbook so hard. And I volunteer as much as I can because a lot's been given to me, and I feel it's important to give back.
Yeah.
I love to help out wherever I can, and that's kind of how I really got to know Brian and Chris, was at the first meetup. When I saw listened to Chris's, y'all's first podcast, I kind of was hooked from the very beginning because your YouTube channels, everything that you talked about reminded me of what I was going through when I was going through private. And it brought back a lot of fond memories. But I just identified with you so well on so many different levels that I thought instantly, these are my people. This is my group. So I'm very flattered that you kind of welcomed me with open arms. It's been great. And up to date now, I'm actually started my commercial training. I can retire from my current job in about 4 years. And my goal when I retire is just all I want to do is fly somebody else's airplane and not incur the cost. Mm-hmm. Period. End of story. And if they pay me for it, it'll be icing on the cake. So awesome. That's it about me. I still learn from everybody on the Discord server, whether you've had 5 hours of training or you're at 500 hours. I still think there's a lot to learn. I always have my ears open, and that's the other great thing about the Discord channel. So, yeah. Did I cover everything?
Yeah, that's great. I mean, and the thing too is that, you've been it's one thing to be, a kind and helpful participant to the community and a good aviator and all that, but you've just gone way out of your way for all of us at some point. So it's a great thing to, when things are going sideways, you're the person that I call. And then if you're not around, I call Chris, but I don't, he doesn't answer the phone anymore.
Well, I mean, it may seem like I'm going out of my way, but if my dad were on this podcast right now, he would tell you that if Kroger had a runway, I'd use the airplane to go get groceries. That's how much I love flying. So any opportunity, any excuse to fly, I'm absolutely going to take it.
Yeah, well, I think that as people get to know you, Ben, and you, Ted, I think that people are going to realize this is the perfect dynamic and the perfect choice, and help. You guys are also kind of bookends to my weirdness in a way that really help the whole thing still kind of have continuity and make sense. So I'm happy about that. And so, Chris, what do you think? Is this a good outfit to carry on the Midlife Pilot podcast, or what?
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not surprised that it took two hosts to replace me. That doesn't surprise me at all. No, I think they were I mean, when we talked initially, I mean, I thought that was the logical choice of, because really, Ben just has so much knowledge and experience, and he got the nickname the Sage it wasn't by accident. I mean, just kind of became kind of the de facto mentor of our group. And, I have tons of stories and just, experiences to share. So I think that's perfect. And Ted, he's going to be the producer extraordinaire with all of his tech skills. And like you said, talked about the sport pilot aspect of things. And he's flying planes that none of us are. I mean, it's a completely kind of a different, and he might be the craziest of the group. Like his whole experience getting to the Nashville fly-in, and like renting a plane and getting checked out in a plane he's never flown and then flying to all those places, like so soon after getting your certificate. I mean, that was just a remarkable feat. So I think, I think it's in solid hands, and Brian's just Brian. I mean, just kind of the glue of the whole thing. So I'm super excited to just be a fan for a while and a subscriber, and just enjoy the podcast and the chat room with all. I haven't got to I wouldn't be in the chat room like throwing comments around like these knuckleheads are. That's what I want to be doing.
Yeah, you can start flame wars and stuff, right? Like you can be like
Hey, just don't bring up which runway you should use based on the wind conditions, because for some reason that gets me as fired up as anything else. It's like Chris disappears from the Discord for like 3 months, and then there's like 17 posts on the topic of like, hypothetically, which runway should you use?
Well, yeah,
we know your hot spots. We know where to.
It's that and Dan Grider, which I saw go by the chat earlier, and I saw that from forget who it was. It was either Josh or Josh, and
of course it's Josh. Yeah,
of course it is.
Yeah.
Ironically, Dan Grider lives about 30 miles away from where I grew up, so yeah, that's kind of apropos.
Well, I think I'm super happy about it. I like the idea of doing it with more frequency and seeing where that goes. We've got some guests, I think, that are going to be, we're going to have a pretty crowded room, but we're going to make it work. But I think we have some good guests to come. And then also what this does is we just stack this thing up with talent, man, so that if somebody's got to take a week off to go do some other thing, it doesn't have to rely on any one of us. And I think that's really, important to the spirit of this whole thing, because for people that really follow this from the audio podcast side, you're going to see that when we've had off weeks where we haven't been able to do the live video taping, a lot of times we've been able to provide guest episodes created by listeners. So Ted and Ben actually had a sort of unwitting audition, I suppose, right? Because you guys had this great conversation without any of us that we released on our podcast audio syndication that was about the sort of the differences between your experiences that I thought was really fascinating. So people should go back and find that. But basically, the nutshell is that, Ben, you've spent most of your time flying one plane and have, whatever 1,000 hours or whatever it is in that plane. Whereas, Ted, by the time he had 30 hours and was getting started, he'd already flown like 9 planes. And then, now God knows how many hours you've put together in the last year and a half. But you've flown easily more planes than anybody else in the group. And so that was an interesting, sort of the pros and cons of that experience relative to each other. And you both had things that you wanted to talk about. So we've been providing this kind of guest provided content, not because we're lazy, but just because it's hard to do all this stuff consistently all the time, and so I want to keep that kind of going. And so we're building some redundancy into this whole thing to where if I can't be here, then no big deal. Ben and Ted can run it. So I think that the odds of two of us being able to do it are pretty good on a weekly basis. And so that's how we're going to roll it. And I still want to do more of those guest provided things. So if anybody has an idea for anything they want to do, well, what do you do on the telethon, right? You tell them where, midlifepilotpodcast@gmail.com. So anyway, just wanted to mention that.
Awesome.
One other thing I'd want to mention, and for all of the audio listeners out there, the mission of the podcast is we're looking to appeal to people that are learning to fly or have already gone through their training and that maybe aren't on the career track, and they're, midlife can be defined in a lot of different ways. So however you want to define midlife, but share this podcast with all your friends who are in aviation or even thinking about aviation. We'd like to get the word out and spread it around as best as possible.
Yeah, so this crossover episode is just that, right? So I know we're asking a lot of people right now to press a lot of things and do a lot of things and get excited about a lot of things, but we want to deliver it, and it's going to take a minute. But we've got some new wrinkles, I think that one of the reasons why Chris and I started this kind of so easily is because we just both had kind of done things like this before in some way, and we just kind of got along really well and had a natural pace for it. So you guys, this may come as a huge surprise to you, but we didn't necessarily prepare that much. We just kind of went after it, and it worked, but that's what made it fun, is because it wasn't this huge burden. I mean, it's still a thing. You got to show up to do it at a certain time, and that alone is a burden, but it was always pretty easy to do it. Chris, would you agree?
Yep. Oh yeah, for sure. Yep. Very natural. I mean, who doesn't like to talk about aviation? I mean, that's just, have you ever met a pilot that doesn't want to talk about flying?
So true.
Even without recording it, you know, I talk to the wall all the time. Yeah.
I worked it in on a shoot the other day for a client we were working. I found a way to talk about me being a pilot at that thing. Any way I can work it in, I like to try to get it out there.
That's a good storyline thing to gather. Maybe too is like all the, like when you telling someone you're a pilot went too far, you know, like
send us your best really segues of how you introduce that you're a pilot.
Right.
Because we can get pretty creative in that remark. So
yeah,
for sure.
Hey, ask me how I got here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm super excited about all of that. If anybody has any questions or condolences for Chris or anything else, please go ahead and throw those in the chat, and we'll read these things out and make sure they show up on the audio podcast. But yeah. So Ben, you're going to have your microphone situation even better next week, right?
Your lips to God's ears.
Jeremy,
I didn't touch anything. I just appeared and I had the robot voice. So I don't know what happened there.
Jeremy Winterberg in the chat said, my work introduces me as a pilot every morning in stand-up since I got my license. So that is one thing I did too. I changed my like Slack profile picture, and my Zoom Gov profile picture is a pilot, and that always leads to all kind of conversations. So that's another great way to force the conversation around you. Like,
the map behind me, and Ted has one too. That usually generates when I'm on Zoom calls. It's usually what's that behind you? But yeah.
Funny you ask.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you about that.
Yeah.
I'm a weather geek. I really am not into aviation. I just want to know what the weather is.
Yeah. Chris works remotely out of his hangar just to have that as his backdrop.
Exactly. It's a conversation starter for sure.
Exactly, Austin Brumley. Just talk to them for 5 minutes. They'll tell you.
Yeah, it really is.
Austin says, how do you know if a pilot is in the room? Easy. They'll tell you.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think that when you're a little older, it's been a long time since you were able to sort of assume an identity, right? Or be a part of a club that had this whole thing. You know, when you're growing up, you might have been a metalhead, or you might have, you know, been goth, or you might have been a drama person, or I don't know, whatever. And so you had like all the accoutrement of the thing, you know. After midlife, it's like we're lucky we can even dress ourselves every day, much less, you know, be hip enough to be associated to a subculture. So aviation really provides that.
That's for sure. The other comment I was going to make when you were talking about Chris and doing other things and reprioritizing, you know, I've spent a lot of time trying to push myself in doing different things and trying to avoid the burnout, volunteering for Freedom Aviation Network, and, you know, pursuing my commercial, you know, scheduling a long cross country once a quarter. There's things that you have to do to almost force yourself to keep from the burnout. Brian, I remember talking with, it wasn't Brian, sorry. One Dull Geek and I were talking about him doing a long cross country, and he was, you know, a little apprehensive, and I'm not trying to throw him under the bus, but I was like, if you keep doing the same thing that you're going to be doing over and over again, just going to this airport and just going to this airport, you're going to burn yourself out. You've got to really start, I hate to say the phrase, but you got to start spreading your wings and start going a little further. So, to your point, Chris, you found other things that I'm a little bit jealous of, to be honest with you. Broadening your horizons. I think that's great.
I appreciate it. Yep. Midlife Pilot, coast to coast. All right. Well, I don't have the responsibility of driving this ship anymore.
Yeah, I guess that's on
You're
me.
like, I'm out of here. Yeah.
Any other comments? Well, Brian, we'll just go around the horn.
This is like senioritis, man, or like it's like the last day of school, and it's only 1 o'clock. You're already just
It's like, no, what it is, it's like we're gonna do the thing where you go like, no, you hang up. No, you hang up.
Look, man. Yeah, we don't. We're really excited about the future, and not because you're not in it, Chris. We have no choice but to carry on. You'll be a part of it. You'll be around. Don't be around for the next one. Just give us at least just one to feel like we've got like something going, and then kind of just kick back in. You're going to be wearing like, I don't know.
You can join us in the chat, but
you can have like a fake tan, a cigar. I don't know.
I will be at the Outer Banks next week, so I'll watch you from there.
That's awesome.
Was that an invite?
I think it was.
No, Ted, I can't. If I put it out there, Ted will be there.
It's only 27 hours. Yeah.
I know that airport.
You do.
Yeah. Well, hey, listen. For me being a co-host for the podcast for you or with you for 2 years has been an absolute pleasure and a joy. I was super bummed when you said you couldn't do it anymore, but at the same time, none of that is comparable to just how good I feel about you doing the things that you need to do and not worrying about, whatever the impact of that is, right? Like, right. It's cool. Like I've run into enough, and you have too, enough creative challenges or limitations or constraints or things where inevitably those always give birth to something new and interesting and, all that, but I can't thank you enough, man. It's been a hell of a time. And I will feel like, it's like hell or high water. We got to hang out every couple of weeks in a way. Oh, yeah. So hopefully we'll find a way to kind of keep that going. So, I don't know if it's up for debate, but I've got like a reminder to call you, at least every day. And then, if you just answer every few days,
we'll be on track. Yeah. I just want to say for one final time, thank you for doing the podcast with me.
Yeah, buddy.
And thank you to everyone in the chat and listening for all of the support. I told my patrons in the video, but it has been super fun. Like Brian said, this isn't a eulogy, and I'm not dying, and I'm not going anywhere. So you can't get rid of me, but it'll just be a different role now. And I'm excited to sit on my couch and sip a drink and enjoy the podcast next week as a viewer and heckle you in the chat room. And Ted, you better put my messages on screen so everybody can read them.
Priority. You've got priority.
Yeah, exactly.
Only if I pay for them though, right? Super chats. Is that what it is now?
Yeah. Well, listen, so Ted's the producer now. He's the one that gets us out of here. When we come back next week, Ben's going to be heading us off with a robot voice or not a robot voice, but we're going and something's going to happen and it is going to be pretty awesome. So I hope everybody comes back next week. But in the meantime, hey, this is just us recording the podcast. We just happen to do it live and video, but our bread and butter is the audio podcast. Make sure you let people know. And that's the most selling I think we've ever done in the history of this podcast, like all combined. Clearly without the star power here, we are under it, guys. We need your help. Okay. We're not going to have Chris anymore, sort of carrying us along, but Chris, thanks so much. Ben, Ted, you guys want to say anything else before, Ted hits the outro button?
No,
looking forward to it.
To everybody in the chat and, to all those out there in the audio land listening, we appreciate it. And Ted.
Yeah. Thanks all. It's been fun and looking forward to seeing you more, Chris.
Yes.
Chris, for the last time, sign us off, get us out of here, and Ted will hit the button at the right time since you don't have the controls anymore. But I'm confident that Ted is right on that button right now.
Oh.
Brian.
I can
Ted. Thank you for potting with me. Thanks for listening. And these three will see you next week. So long.
See you, everybody.
All right, later.